Yes, guys, and welcome back to We Are Tottenham TV for yet another pre-match pump up. And today we take on Brighton in what for me is do or die for top four, even though I think it's probably already looking over, which I'll get into in a little while. But look, a quick thing about the game, the injuries, and then we're going to check in with Shawnee and see how my main man is doing. So, of course, we are home at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium today, the best stadium in world football. Hopefully the players realise that and actually playing it today. 3 p.m. kickoff. Referee is Stuart Atwell. In the VAR room, we've got Michael Salisbury. Make sure you take note of them names because they have absolutely rode us over the last few weeks in terms of referee decisions at VAR. So very important that we take their names down. And then, of course, make sure you stay tuned here because the boys watching along should be kicking off in and around 2:30. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Of course, out today for Tottenham is Lucas Moura, Yves Bissouma, Ryan Sessegnon, Rodrigo Bentancur. Oh my God, do we miss him? Ben Davies as well, along with Emerson and Richarlison. We're not 100% sure on yet, so let's wait and see what happens there. And with Brighton, Adam Lallana's out, Jakob Moder and Jeremy Sarmiento. But so Brighton more or less have a full squad to pick from. But here to get us through the weeks today, up until kickoff, we have one of the best people, on this show. We are missing Ashmati today, but we have the one and only Sean from Spurs Talk Show. How are you keeping, my man?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Listen, I did a Tottenham walk thing this morning, and I couldn't bring myself to talk about the game because I thought I'd rather than like get my expectations up too high as I'm trying to figure out a reason to be positive about it. I thought, no, I'm just going to let sleeping dogs lay and wait until after the aftermath and then come back and reflect on it tomorrow. I can't imagine many people in the comments are going to be too positive or optimistic about it, but hopefully we can find a way to, to eke out a draw, to maybe snatch a win, which isn't that a horrible thing to have to kind of recognise, right? We're playing against Brighton at home and all of us are, or most of us, I'm assuming, are putting our chances at slim to none. Whereas, what happened a year ago, we would have taken this sort of game and thought, 3 points, easy peasy, right?
Do you know what, Shawnee? It's more. I think it's because of a reflection of what we're seeing on the pitch. Like I know Stanini came out in his pre-match press conference and said fans have to get behind the team, this, that, and the other. And usually I'm all for that, no problem. Everyone get behind the team. But the reality is the team have given up on us a long time ago. It's kind of like, I'll put the question to people inside the club now. When are you going to start doing something for the fans? Instead of the fans always getting behind you. Because, we turned up for the AC Milan game. Fans got behind them. No difference. People traveled to Sheffield on a Wednesday night. No difference.
Yeah.
People, and then you've seen some of the Premier League games since. And the effort just has not been there. So I would flip that question and say, how about you do it for the fans today? The loyal fans that support you through thick and thin, that buy all the merchandise, regardless what phase the club is going through. The fans that travel all the way across Europe, all the way across England, to watch this team. do it for them today. All the
Yeah.
people that give up stuff, that can't get to games because of where they live, but don't go to family events, don't do this, don't do that to sit at home, watch the game. Do it for them. Just do it for the fans today, because I don't think more fans can take what they're seeing on the football pitch.
100%, mate. Look, there's a massive difference. Obviously, and it doesn't take me. I shouldn't have to say this, but there's a huge difference between the fan and a customer. The loyalty that we provide every season, week in, week out, knows no bounds. And look, it's obvious to anyone that's watching that Tottenham are going through a massive low at the moment. There's a plethora of reasons why, but ultimately the players that are paid an absolute fortune to get on that pitch, if you're beaten by a better team on the day, then so be it. I think fans will tolerate sometimes when you're just beaten by the better side. But if the effort isn't there, if there's no desire, there's no passion, and there's no willingness to go the extra mile, then it's a disgrace. And the performances of late, especially in the last 10, 15 minutes, I'm not suggesting or defending the first sort of 75, 85, but the last 10 minutes in the last few games have been weak beyond comparison. I can't remember more poor final minutes to games for a long time. And look, today's going to be very tough against a team where I kind of feel like we're probably weaker than them in all departments at the moment, especially in confidence, form, and team instructions from the bench. But even when you look at the actual players on the pitch, you'd swap most of Brighton's team for Tottenham's at the moment based on what we're seeing. So it's going to be a really tough game. But like you say, if the players come out and give one back to the fans and play with a bit of passion and heart, then that's at least something that you can kind of take away from the game. That's not a disappointment, I guess.
Yeah, look, I really do hope they turn up, but when I look at things, it's just not right. It looks like a lot of the players have given up. It looks like they already can't wait for the season to end. Some that just want to go on holiday, some that just want to get out of our club. It just doesn't look good. It does not look good. And then when you've got, we've had a run of games, Wolves, Everton, Southampton, which we ideally needed to win. You've got Newcastle, Liverpool, Man United coming up. And that's why I don't think we get top four. Even if we do something today, I think the opportunity has been missed over them period of games. Because I don't back Tottenham really to get anything from Liverpool or Man United. Now, I know we got something at Liverpool towards the end of last season, but last season we were together. Everyone was fighting for the one cause. Everyone was on the same page. This season, it's not like that. And in them big games, that's where you need that camaraderie most, where people run for each other, people sacrifice for each other, people make that extra yard or burst for their teammate. We don't have that this season, and that's why I think we've already missed a chance. And I know today is more or less being labelled as the winner will be the one that will be fighting for top four. Even if we win, I still believe them games are where we've missed that chance. But where are you at with it, Sean? Is it do or die today?
Yeah, well, I think it is. Look, personally, it depends on really what you value. Right? I think you're right in the top four is out of the equation this season. I think Newcastle are going to run away with it, and I think Manchester United's home form is good enough, in spite of their away form being weak, to be able to get over the line. I don't know how long Casemiro's out for still, or how many more games he misses. And look, when it comes to those sorts of things, you actually have to maybe not use it as an excuse, but take it into consideration. I don't know when Ryan Sessegnon is back, or Ben Davies. If either of those two players are due back, in the coming days, and then we can have a different option on the left, because I do think a massive amount of our problems at the moment are fundamentally structured around, and I hate to say it because, I don't want to point fingers in one direction too much, because everyone takes a share of the pie here, but I do think that Perisic on the left has been a disaster defensively. I think that Longley next to him, whilst I like the guy when he's on the ball, I think he's too slow. And when you have someone like Perisic next to him, both of them are too slow, and both of them have got a turning circle like an oil tanker. And and most teams that we're competing with have got a tricky, young, fast, aggressive winger on the right-hand side that could just attack down that side. And it's an easy tactic to employ, and it's a very successful tactic when executed well, which isn't difficult to do when you're playing against Perisic and Longley. With Ben Davies in the side, it gives you a little bit more of a helping hand. And if Sessegnon was also back, listen, I'm not sitting here saying that Sessegnon is like some saviour or anything, but I just think he does offer a little bit more rigidity and strength in that on that side, then it gives you a different option. So if those two aren't coming back before we get into that 3-game run against those big boys, then I think that I agree with you. What I do think is the realistic option is whether we can get into the Europa League. There's still a chance with that. Even if this game's a draw today, I still think that Tottenham are in a shout for the Europa League. After that, I don't know. I'd love to ask your opinion, mate. Like, if you had the option of not playing in Europe at all next year or going for the Conference League, you know, the Conference League should be a trophy that's realistically winnable if the team took the game seriously, like they didn't do a couple of years ago. But also, it does mean that you're distracted and playing, you know, going away from home several times in midweeks during the season. Newcastle have benefited massively this year from not having 2 games a week throughout. Would you rather go for the Conference League, or if the option was Conference League or no Conference League, what would you take?
Look, first of all, I want to say I think it's embarrassing if we go back into Europa League, Europa Conference League. Tottenham should be a Champions League team. That's where we should be. And that should be bare minimum every season. Fourth should be the bare minimum. Anything above that should be the expectation. Fourth should be the expectation. Anything above that is what we should be building towards. Look, I'm one of these. I'm a bit sad in a way. Like, look, I went to school. All my friends were Liverpool, Arsenal, Man United. It's the way it is over here in Ireland. And I was sick of them coming in, talking about their European nights. And I'm sitting there, couldn't participate in the conversation. Anytime I went to say anything, it's like, shut up, Spud. You know, you're a Spud fan. Shut up. You know, and it's just kind of like, you know, I hold that with me, Sean. I hold it, right? You know, that's why I am the sort of Spurs fan I am. You know, I used to go home to my dad. I'm like, Dad, you know, I'm sick of not having these nights. Why have you done this to me? You know, but in my room, I always said, we'll get there one day. We'll stay there. And we got there. And I want to stay there for that reasons. And if it's not Champions League, I want Europa League. If it's not Europa League, I want Conference League. Now, I know people are going to say it's just an inconvenience. We didn't take it seriously. But at the end of the day, we got to stop writing off these trophies. Many people wanted the FA Cup this year for us to go for it and play the strong team. It should be the same when it comes to a Europa League or a Europa Conference League. It just, if it's good enough for someone like Jose Mourinho, who's won every trophy in every country he's been in, it should be good enough for a club that don't pick up or haven't picked up too many trophies over the last 22, 23 years. But the problem we have, Sean, is that you've got a core group of players here that has to change in order for us to progress in any cup competition. And I'm leaving all the other players that we've brought in. I'm talking about the mainstay, the Poch teams, the Poch players who just haven't done it, you know, and have only really popped up under that spell under Conte in last season and haven't really done it before that or since then. You know, I don't put Kane and Son in there because they have turned up over the last few years, regardless. I know Kane had a period under Nuno and Son had a period, but it's been nowhere near as long as others. But when you've got them guys in the team, and you got to look at it, right? The amount of players that we've bought since the rebuild, I'd argue we've gone through 2 rebuilds. We went through one with Ndombele, Sassi, Doherty, and stuff like that, and now we're going into a second one. Then you look at the players coming in, not settling. There's camps, there's fractions, Welsh mafia, French mafia, cheese mafia, spaghetti mafia. You know what I mean? It's a joke, right? You know, cricket mafia. It's ridiculous. Yeah. There's a massive problem there that no one is settling in. There's no standards to be upholding. So like when these guys come in, no one's going, this is how you act as a Tottenham player. This is the bare minimum. You fall below that, we'll let you know about it and you'll be nowhere near the team. And that's why you're seeing in the cup games, regardless of who we put out there, in the Europa Conference League, when you're playing players, you know, that's why we're seeing the performances we're seeing, because there's no standard set at Tottenham. So even if we do make one of them cup competitions, it's not about taking it seriously. It's about getting rid of senior players that have not set standards and getting a new lot that can do it. I think you will see us start, you know, taking a lot of these games more seriously.
Yeah. No, we spoke about this offline a couple of weeks ago. You know, I asked you a question about the gap, right? Like, regardless of what's happening at boardroom level or even in the coaching staff, where's the other, you know, what's the issue? And you came back with the lack of leadership. And I thought it was a really well put together argument that there is, like, you might have experienced players that have done well during their career, people like Hugo Lloris, people like Harry Kane, whatever, but I don't know where the vocality is. I don't know where the Roy Keane who will absolutely scold you if you turn up a minute late for training, or if you're not in line when the coaches get in line. Where is that guy who's not everyone's friend, who's like, I think I saw someone yesterday in a WhatsApp group, might have been you again, Dave, talking about Eric Dyer, being annoyed or whatever, losing his golfing mate, Matt Doherty.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like all those kind of little clicks and stuff, like you were saying just now. Like, where's the guy who is the consummate professional, right? Who doesn't care about popularity, who is a champion, a leader. He doesn't have to be the best player, right? But he doesn't have to be the best technical player, but he has to be the best when it comes to getting everybody in line and focusing on the task at hand. And I would probably say that from what I've seen, Pierre-Emile Højbjerg probably comes across as the guy that represents that in the closest realm to it, right? You see Højbjerg screaming and shouting at Kane at times. He's not afraid to have a crack at anybody, right? He doesn't look like the most fun person, but he looks like a real professional, like a Roy Keane type. And I think that Tottenham need one or two more of them, a little bit less lackadaisical people that kind of just rock up and take it all in their stride. No more Dele Allis, no more Ndombele's, no more Serge Reguilons. I think he's probably one of those. No more Lo Celsos. None of those types of players. We need to spend a hell of a lot of time when it comes to our recruitment going forward. And I think we all agree that it's not Tottenham aren't not spending money. We might not be able to compete on the monetary spend with the likes of Manchester City over the years, or Chelsea or whatever. But everybody else, we are very competitive on how we spend it. It's just where we spend, or sorry, not on what we spend, but how we spend it is, and where we spend it is the problem. And I think that there is a massive, massive gap in the identification and acquisition of players based not solely on their technical abilities, but on the psychological aspect. Now, it's very difficult, in my opinion, to be able to identify psychological strength in players if the club philosophy is to go after young players that have longevity and value that could then be sold on, because they haven't had enough time to demonstrate their psychological strength yet. But that is where good scouting comes in, and where you hope that these people that are good scouts don't just, go and watch a player a few times and then go, he's talented, let's go and get him, like in the Ndombele example, but where they go and get to know the person before they recommend him to the club. Because I think that is the major gap, not just in terms of like winning trophies. I think there's a gap there psychologically, but also just in the ability to grab the season by the horns every day, every minute, every hour, and take your job professionally. Because back to the original point, Luke 360, it's about the fans. It's about the loyalty and the passion and the money that fans don't have that they always find to spend on Tottenham. So the psychological aspect of identification of talent for me is massively important, and we massively undermine it in terms of our approach to players in the market.
No, I fully agree. But as important as I think bringing in players, I think it's equally just important as to get some of them, what you would call leaders, out of the dressing room, because they're not really leaders. They're just players with sort of experience. They're older than the rest. You look at a lot of our recruitment on the Paratici, it's been 25 or under, but there's no one, being a leader of that group. And I think that's the problem. Like, you look at Arsenal, Aubameyang would have been considered one of the leaders of the squad, but Arteta was quick to get him out. And once he got him out, look at how that's changed. Everyone has fallen into line. You had Aubameyang turn up late to meetings, this, that, and the other, and he had a massive say in the club. But once you get rid of that sort of culture, look at the changes it can bring about. So I definitely think that's an aspect we need to improve. But lineups will be with us in 3 minutes. We will get them up on your screens. But Jacko sent in a super chat here. He says, lots of us wish Spurs will run more like Brighton. What's a page you would take out of their book? Surely there's something that we can replicate. And, you look at Brighton, Sean, people, I think it was Tony Barber, or that the guy that used to be at Tottenham, now at Brighton. I think he said on TalkSport at the time when Chelsea were coming in for Potter, it's like, it doesn't matter. We've got our next 2-3 managers already mapped out. You look at the scouting, it derives from the owner and his business, where he made his money from the first place. He's been able to replicate the statistics into a scouting department, and look at the players just coming through. It's an endless cycle. Yep. So what would you take from Brighton right now when you look at it? Because they're sort of a club that everyone's praising.
Yeah, that's it, mate. That's it. It's the Moneyball system, right? They seem to have a scientific approach to it. God knows how that starts. I'm not an expert in how, that whole process works, but the identification of players that are coming through next, to replace the players that you know are developing well and that are going to move on. They obviously know, because they are a club that is a selling club, right? They generally do sell their best players on. They know that Bissouma is going to has done very well over the previous 2-3 years or whatever of his time there. He's going to at some point attract or find the attraction of bigger teams. They need to know that in advance and go, we need to find the next Bissouma. We need to be going and looking for a player that is similar to, that can replicate the same things. Now then they go and get their scouts to go and dig through all the archives of stats and data management and all that kind of data mining stuff, and then go and figure out where that next guy's coming from. And they found it in Caicedo. The same with McAllister, same with the Japanese guy whose name escapes me right now, Mitoda. Like they have a very, it's like a kind of like a Ford production line of players that come through. When they emerge and they do well, they know they're going to need to replace him in a year or two's time. So they start the process early of going and identifying it. It's a brilliant system. It works very well if you accept who you are and know that you are a selling club. You are a kind of feeder club because of the level you're at. I'm sure that the approach is not the same at Manchester City. The approach isn't the same at Chelsea or Liverpool. But if we're going to look at Brighton, I think Tottenham would benefit hugely from having a system like that. And maybe, just maybe, one of these new, the new approach that we're taking with Scott Munn, who has a wonderful track record with everything he's achieved in Australia and China across 3 different disciplines. Maybe he's the sort of guy that can come in and put that kind of system in place and allow whoever the next director of football, whether it's Paratici or somebody else, who can kind of enforce that and help with the identification process. I'm looking forward to see what Scott Munn can do, by the way, mate. I think it's going to be we'll talk about him in 15 minutes, I guess. We've got the teams are out, right?
Yeah, the lineups are out, Shawnee. Can you bring them up? Because anytime I do, my computer freezes and I don't want to leave you on your own. So look, we'll bring up the starting lineups, because I do actually want to have a Scott on, or a chat on Scotty Too Hotty, Shawnee. I'm only doing that. I'm only messing on Scott Munn. Because I'm a bit confused on the situation. I'm a bit confused, with him coming in, Paratici, if the ban doesn't happen, then he'll be back in his role. Then you've got Greta Steinson, and it looks a bit clogged up. It does look like, to me, it's sort of the blame game, but look, I do want to have a proper discussion on it, because maybe you might be able to say something that might be able to make it a bit more clarity in my head. But look, we will bring up the starting lineups because they are out. Big up, Jacko.
Big up, Jacko.
Support, my man. The lineups are out, and it reads as Hugo Lloris back in goals yet again. Don't understand why. Romero in there along with Dyer and Lenglet. Back 3 hasn't changed. Back 4 or back 5 hasn't changed with Pedro Porro and Perisic. It hasn't changed at all. Same. The everything game with Skip and Højbjerg in midfield, Kulusevski, Kane and Son all forming the front 3. Johnny, what's your initial thoughts on the lineups? No changes whatsoever? Is that more a reflection of the injuries and the suspension and stuff we've had? Or is there something else Stellini could have done?
Well, I mean, he did say that, the options for change, they've been working on different things, but because of injuries, they're kind of limited. And whilst I can appreciate that and accept it with a balanced mind, what I would say is that there is the option today to have started the game with a midfield 3. Bring Sarr in, make the choice of whether you want to drop Kulu to the bench or Sonny and go 3-5-2. Look, obviously it's a bit of an experiment. It's not something we do too often, but just against this particular Brighton team, I just think that we're going to be dominated once again by the likes of, I haven't got the Brighton team up yet, but assuming that they're going to go similar to what they usually do, Caicedo and McAllister and Mitoma up there, I just think that they have better balance in their midfield. And, I feel like it's going to be one of those days where we get dominated, and therefore how much opportunity is Kulusevski, Kane and Son going to have if you're losing the midfield battle? I also think that Porro and Perisic are going to get pinned back because of the strength of Brighton in the midfield and the way that they play the football. So, look, I think on one hand, you could say it's as expected. He alluded to the fact that there wasn't many options he could do. And obviously, you do need to have something where you can go to on the bench if there's a problem with someone. But I think a lot of people would have been happier to have seen to go to a 3 in the middle to at least dominate and strangle the life out of a game a little bit. And then in the second half, you then push on, maybe make a change early, like 55th minute, bring on somebody else, bring on the Kulusevski or the Sonny, whoever's not there, and then go for it, see what happens. It's not really what I would have gone for, but I'm not that surprised, if I'm honest. What are your thoughts, mate?
Look, I'm not happy that Hugo Lloris is back and goes. For me, I think he's finished. I wasn't impressed with him against Everton. I do think he makes more people around him nervous. Like, for instance, okay, Dyer gave him a back pass, but then Hugo's got to take responsibility as captain and get it out there. He gives it to Romero without screaming inside his own box that there's two players on him. Two players, it's unbelievable. For me, Hugo Lloris has had a really bad season. I get the fact that he's club captain, but the reality is he's not a leader. It's not working. So change it up. The season's already more or less a write-off. So just change it up now. Bring Fraser Forster back in. He's done well in the games he's had to play, and I think he's better with the feet. So I'm not happy with that call, but then again, Stanini was kind of kept here to sort of keep the vibes, stuff like that. So I can understand why he put Hugo Lloris in. I just don't agree with it.
It's a good point, actually, mate. It's a good point. I forgot to mention Lloris. He shouldn't have been back in the... Sorry, just quickly. He shouldn't have been in the first game that he came back. It's a disgrace. It rips apart the idea of meritocracy. Foster's been our best player, but certainly our best signing this season. He had a shaky game against Leicester. After that, I think he's been solid as a rock. He wasn't at fault for the Milan goal, and most of the goals that have gone in have not been a result of him. He's put in some worldy saves as well, down low. I thought he must be going, what did I do? Lloris comes back in.
That one last week, Sean, do you think? The one against Everton Monday night?
Look, he probably would have had a better chance than Lloris because Lloris was like, feet were plodded, cemented into the floor. It was a world-class strike, let's be honest. It was an absolute ripper and it was out, sliced. It was moving away from the keeper. I don't know if anyone would have saved it necessarily, but it's not about that for Lloris for me. I'm not worried about Lloris's ability to stop shots. It's the confidence or lack thereof that he rips into the players. Like the ridiculous behaviour with the ball at the back in the second half against Everton was absolutely embarrassing. He invokes absolutely zero confidence in the back three, and he's our captain. So if we're putting the best interests of the club to one side to respect the feelings of the club captain when he doesn't deserve it this season, then it's a problem for me. Sorry, mate. I interrupted your point about the rest of the team. Go for it.
I fully agree with you, Lloris. Fully agree with you. I just want to bring up this comment here from the Conqueror. He says, stop calling the season a write-off now. Fans need to understand the financial implications. Look, I'm one of those. I fully understand it. Reason why I'm saying it's a write-off, it's kind of like, I just don't see it there from the players. I just don't believe. I don't see the want in this. You think, okay, after the Sheffield United AC Milan game, go and give it your all against Wolves. We lose 1-0. Okay, pick it up. Go and give it your all for the fans against Southampton. We blow a 3-1 lead. Okay, go and do it against Everton. We blow a 1-0 lead, and we had 11 men where they had 10 for the large majority of that until Lucas Moura got sent off. So it's kind of like, that's why I'm saying I feel like it is a write-off, because I understand that we need the money, right, with the way the business and the way their business plan, the way they operate. We need it. But the reality is, I don't think the players want it. And I think that's why I call it a write-off, my man. But look, getting back into the lineup. Look, Romero, Dyer, Langley, it is what it is to the end of the season. That's got to change. Conceded way too many goals this season. Way too many for my liking. Midfield, Højbjerg and Skip were absolutely atrocious against Everton. Skip looked like Harry Winks at times, not wanted to turn out with the ball, not wanted to be brave with it, just sort of simple passes. That's hiding, that's shirking responsibility for me. You look at Højbjerg, it was absolutely atrocious. It looks like he doesn't want to sort of put in the effort that's required. We're badly missing Bentancur's energy, athleticism and stuff like that in there, and his control. That's why I'm a bit confused on why Sarr's not getting a look in, because, everything I've seen from Sarr this season, the appearances I've seen, the game I've seen out in Milan where he played, I thought he was terrific. I thought he was one of the only players that come off the pitch with his head held high that night, that 1-0 loss to Milan. And for me, I don't understand why this guy isn't in there, why he's not given more of a chance when it's clear that Højbjerg and Skip haven't been doing it. And as for Son, as much as I like the guy, and look, I want to give the guy another season next season, I'm in no rush to sell him whatsoever. He's a huge problem. He's becoming a huge problem. He's losing the ball in areas that we can't be losing it, in the middle of the pitch, in our own half, because he can't hold it up. Even when he does hold it up and he wants to get turned, just that confidence isn't there. So that extra... That yard that he had with the confidence and everything else, it's gone. And people are just taking the ball off him. Every time it goes to him, it's breaking down. And that's not good enough. That has to stop. So, if we went to a 3-5-2 today, I would have said drop Sonny in my opinion. And look, I know people are going to get on my case, but the reality is, I've been a backer of this guy. I've constantly said, keep him in, play him through it and stuff like that. But it's becoming costly now. He's losing the ball in dangerous areas, and it can't keep continuing. So, look, basically, the Tottenham players, every single one of them owe us a performance today.
Yep.
They better put it in. They better. They owe the fans. They owe us. And if they don't, that's why I get super angry after the games, because they owe us. Now looking at the Brighton lineup here, Shawnee. Steele, I think he's a goalkeeper that can be tested. Although what I will say is he had a magnificent assist from a kick.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, you're right. The other day. Yeah.
But
100%.
I think he's I think you'll score against him. There's goals with this guy. I don't think he gets down as quick. I think some of the goals that Brentford scored, I think if you had Sanchez in, they maybe would have stopped. But Sean, take us through the Brighton lineup here.
Yeah, you got Lewis Dunk, you got Colwill, Marsh and McAllister, alongside Gross in the and Caicedo. Yeah, I think they're going for a 3-5-1. No, sorry, a 3-5-2. 3-5-2 they're going for. Look, for me, I think that there's problems there with... let me call them out first. You got Steele in goal. You got Dunk, Colwill, Marsh, Solly Marsh, McAllister, the World Cup winner, Gross, Welbeck, Mitoma, Caicedo, Estupiñán, and Veltman. To me personally, I worry about how Estupiñán's going to approach the game against what's his name, Pedro Porro. I don't know if Pedro Porro is going to be able to get much space. Estupiñán's very composed defensively and gets forward down the left-hand side and absolutely tears teams apart. If Porro's not on form, we could have problems there. Danny Welbeck, and he's always a pain in the arse, isn't he, against Tottenham? He's a ex-Arsenal boy, whatever. He can always do his trouble. But Mitoma's obviously the danger man as well that likes to hang off the left. You got Caicedo, McAllister, and I don't know, would it be Gross or Marsh that would be in the middle alongside them?
Gross. I think
Gross
Marsh
on the left,
playing out wide.
Yeah, Marsh will be on the right, and then Veltman, Duncan, Colwill. So it's more of a 4 actually. It's a 4 at the back, and look, Veltman's also very, very, very troublesome down that right hand side as well. So I don't know how this is their standard teammate. For me personally, they've got a lot of danger men. If they had a brilliant striker, they'd be not just in a top 4 battle, but they'd be doing better than they already are. Maybe up there alongside Manchester United in 3rd place. Obviously, that's their weak spot is Welbeck, but they don't need to really worry about him, and they've got so much creativity just in behind them and so much flexibility. And with the kind of level of the pace and the speed that we've got in defence, I think we could be torn apart a little bit here. I hope that we can't. For me personally, I want to see Tottenham get stuck in, really kind of strangle the life out. I think we're going to spend a lot of the time on the back foot and do the usual kind of the try and break at pace when we can. That's really the only option we have right now. If the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to be a nail. And therefore, the idea that we have to do the kind of the counter-attack in football is just par for the course. It's a very, very strong team for me, mate. And they're not only, like I said, the technicality of them and the ability of that team from the midfield forward and in the width is really, really impressive. And also they've got so much confidence, so much good form, and a manager who knows how to set the instructions up correctly.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference for Brighton this year, Shawnee, is that they score goals. Well, you look at Potter, right? Played well, but the end product wasn't there. They didn't really score the goals. That sort of is something that followed him to Chelsea. But you look at the Zerbi, they've scored a lot more goals. And look where they are. Look where it's brought them. He sort of added that goal element to it. Now, what I'm really worried about today is the likes of McAllister, Gross. Technical players, good on the ball, can pick a pass, can shoot from distance. They got a goal in them. Skip and Højbjerg need a massive, massive game today. And I can see Brighton, dominating possessions for large periods of the game. And that's where it becomes dangerous for Tottenham, because we know with our backline, you're going to have players that switched off. Last season, at the end on the run-in, Dyer turned his back on Trossard, and it's things like that that will end up happening if we allow them to dominate the possession and dominate the ball for large periods. But then you've got someone like Mitoma, makes good runs in behind, they can find him, but he's also good on the ball, people, good finisher, Welbeck. Look, he's just one of them. He's experienced flick-ons, stuff like that with Mitoma running in behind. March is another one. You know, okay, I don't think the end product's there. I think he misses an awful lot of chances, me personally. But he's a good deliverer of the ball, a good crosser, a winning runner, very energetic. So, you know, I do see us being in danger today, especially if we put in the level of performance that we've shown in previous weeks. We've won 1 out of our last 6. You go back to a lot of them games, it's been slow, lethargic. You look at Southampton in the second half, we sat back. But okay, sit back, but move side to side. Show a bit of purpose. No one done that. Nobody moved. And that's where I think Brighton are going to kill us today.
Yeah.
So that's why Tottenham really need to be switched on. We really need to be at from the very, very beginning, from minute 1 to minute 90. Actually, from the first whistle to the last whistle, you know, because that still gives them that 30 seconds either side to fuck up. And I don't want that to happen. You know, they've got to be switched on today. If not, this could get very, very embarrassing today, I feel.
But listen, I think that Tottenham always, we set up this way, as I said before, the hammer analogy, right? We do, and look, we might be on the receiving end of a lot of pressure, but if we do sit back and we break, then Tottenham always do have chances. For me, it's about what we do when we do break. And look, I don't want to be the guy that's always hammering on Sonny. I don't, right? Because I love him to pieces and I miss him. I miss the Sonny of last season and the previous 7 or 8. But at the end of the day, like, Dave, I was on the watch along with you, right, for the Everton game. Sonny was just, he was a pedestrian. He was just walking around. Like, you know, Kulusevski is a talented player, but I don't put him in the same bracket as Sonny. I have high expectations, high demands of Sonny because of the player I know he can be. Kulusevski's recovering from an injury. He hasn't really shaken off the hamstring. I don't think he wants to drop into third gear too many times, but at least you see him fighting and going for it and making those runs. Sonny, I'm not sure whether it's he's lost heart for it, or whether he just doesn't fully understand or really just detests the instructions that are given to him to come deep. But when the ball is in other areas, I just see him sitting there watching like he's in the stands, just sort of like he's not part of the game, rather than trying to get involved.
He's not even doing anything either, though, is he?
Defensively, the ball passes him by too easily. He's never sprinting to get back. When the ball is whipped down the right-hand side, he's jogging towards the back, like the back of the box. He should be like absolutely on the end of it, trying to get into the danger zone. He's not doing it. And to me, again today, like, I don't want to see him drop because I don't want it to come across like I don't like him. I just think that if there has to be some level of meritocracy and consequences for not putting in the shift. And he hasn't been, apart from what, 2 times this season, has he been off the bench? 1 time it worked. He came up and had a point to prove. Then he was put straight back in and his performances fell again. And one other time he came off the bench, he scored a goal and then he was straight back into the team. And that was against Preston, I think it was, in the cup. Every other game he plays 90 minutes or 80 minutes. He looks fed up and pissed off when he gets substituted before Kulusevski does. And like, for me, he needs to step up. We've got 8 games left. I don't expect him to anymore because I've been asking and demanding him to do it every week for 8 months, and he hasn't. But look, let's see maybe today, because we haven't got any option with Lucas Moura, even though I don't understand for the life of me why he's been getting the nod ahead of Danjuma anyway. But without him in the way and with Richarlison still probably not quite fully fit, maybe just maybe today in the second half, we see Danjuma and maybe just maybe he's got a point to prove and gets the ball and does something well with it. And so if we're still in the game in the 60th minute, if the game isn't behind us, if we're 1-1, 0-0, 2-2, even if we're 2-1 down, then I'd like to see Danjuma come on and see if he's got some sort of gusto about him to see what he can do to try and cement his place or at least put his name in the lights, because he hasn't done anything wrong when he's come on. And the few minutes that he's had, I think it's a disgrace that he hasn't been given more time than he has, to be honest.
I was surprised that Lucas Moura's brought in. It's kind of like we all know Lucas Moura wants out, right? You know, it's kind of like, why are we still playing these guys ahead of other people? It's like, it kind of leads on to what you're saying as well, Sean. It's like we keep putting players out there even though they're not playing well. And it's like, I don't know why we're doing it. You got look, we're at a point now where you got to start dropping these players. You got to start having accountability, because all the message you're sending out now is go out there, do what you want, because it doesn't matter. You're going to play next week. There's no accountability for a shit performance. There's no going, you let us down last week, you're not playing this week. You might get an opportunity off the bench, and if you do, you got to take it. So what we're seeing now is just players going out there and doing exactly what they want. And we've seen it all season. Regardless of the performance, you will play. And it just can't keep happening like this. It just can't. Something has to change.
That's part of the psychological barrier at Tottenham, I think. This thing that certain players, who was it who said it? The guy Ard de Mos, the Dutch guy, when he was asked on a podcast whether or not Arne Slot should be interested in taking over from Feyenoord. And he said, I don't think so. I think he should. I think he should avoid it. Basically, he said that Daniel Levy's a problem to work with, but also there seems to be like a protection around the dressing room and that the players have got too much power. I'm paraphrasing, but that's generally what the message was. I don't know how Arde Slot or Arde Moss or whatever his name is, I don't know how he knows that in so much detail, but generally it came across like spot on analysis. There does seem to be a protection, a ring fence around the dressing room where certain players play no matter how badly they play. Other players that are not, I don't know, favourites or not, that haven't earned their stripes, don't get a look in no matter how much they try. And if the players, down tools and can't be bothered anymore, then what's the easiest common denominator to move on from? And that's the manager. Yeah. Conte was right. Like I've always said, Conte was wrong in how he said what he said, but he was right what he said. And it's decisions like bringing Hugo Lloris back in without any due cause or rationale, and dropping the guy who's been a far better servant in between the sticks this season than he has for Lloris makes the point about player power. And exactly the same thing could be said about continuing to play Sonny in spite of consistent and consecutive woeful performances where it looked against Everton like he didn't even care.
Yeah. I think he's absolutely spot on. It does seem that there is a certain proportion of this dressing room that is ring fenced. And I wonder, is it because managers know if they don't keep any of them on board because of the bond they have, because of how long they've been there together, will he be thrown under the bus? When realistically, appeasing them, all it's doing is just sort of prolonging it anyway. So it has to be broken up. It's got to be broken up this summer. We've got to move on from it. But so we do want to talk about Scott Munn, the appointment of him. What's your thoughts on it?
Look, I think it's very early, right? So I did as much research as I possibly could into what what his exploits are. I think he's a massive cycling buff, right? I think he's obviously into sport after he got into the Olympic Committee through cycling for Australia. Did a brilliant job there. Don't want to waste any time boring anyone with what he did there, but a very good effort. Then moved into rugby league. I think his family, one of his family members, was like a rugby league player, and so that's probably one of his entries in, or that's where one of his hearts were, sort of loves were growing up. Did an absolutely amazing job in a very difficult position for a club in Australia that weren't that great, and then under his guidance, under the instructions or whatever that he put in place, structural changes that he made, that club became fantastic. He then made the pivot across towards Melbourne FC, which is obviously part of the Manchester City football group. And look, Melbourne FC were like a mid-table team. I think it's only 12 teams in the A-League. I could be wrong, but 12 or 14 teams or something. And they finished, like in the previous years, when he first got there, they were like finishing 7th, 8th, 6th, like a mid-table team, like a kind of like an Everton or like a Villa or whatever, right? Or a Tottenham 20 years ago. He comes in and immediately gets them up to 4th, and the next season 3rd, then the next season 2nd. Then the following season, he wins their first title for them. He then gets promoted to take over Manchester City. And the guy that comes in is his understudy, almost like Arteta to his Pep Guardiola. That guy comes in and does the double, right? So the following season, after Scott Munn's moved on and all the structures in place, that progression continues. So they win the league, they defend the title. And then this season is now happening and they're 5 points clear with a game in hand with like 4 games to play or something. So that Melbourne have gone from being an absolutely nothing mid-table team in Australia. And I understand it's Australia. I get it. Like, it's not like, it's not like doing it with Tottenham, whatever, but someone's got to start somewhere. And you have to just look at the guy's track record, his resume, and it's kind of flawless. It's kind of flawless, right? Like, he hasn't failed anywhere. There's no bad publicity about him. There's nowhere you can find, as far as I could see, anyone that's got a problem with him. He's a brilliant guy when it comes to relationships. He's very forward thinking and very innovative. He was one of the first people to do some really crazy stuff in the rugby league world that is now like become par for the course in Australian rugby league. Right. A really interesting guy. And the argument to say, well, he's not a football guy, right? He's transitioned across the spectrum of sport. Well, look, I understand that. And people would point to like the guy, Clive Woodward, the rugby union coach of England, in the 2004, won the World Cup, then retired, then went to Southampton under Rupert Lowe, and it failed. right? And that a lot of people back then in like 2008 or whatever it was were saying if Clive Woodward can't do the transference, if his skill set is not transferable from rugby to football, then it's not for anybody. And that was the kind of narrative. But this guy is not the same. He's already made the transfer and proven his worth in 3 different sports, including football. The gap in the confidence for me is in whether or not he obviously can do it at the next level up, the next competition level in Europe. What I would say, though, is, last thing I'll say on it, is I do think that I made a video about this today, so anyone who's interested can go and see it in more detail on my channel. But Donna Maria Cullen, right, is the PR girl and one of the directors at Tottenham in the boardroom. And it's coming out a lot lately that she's got a little bit too much influence. She shouldn't be involved in footballing decisions. But she was the PR director who put out the statement. She still is, but she put out the statement in 2019 that said that we are calm. We are, I'm not sure what the word was she used, but basically we're relaxed is the word. We're relaxed about the transfer policy. And then Pochettino came out and said, I'm not relaxed. I'm the coach. I'm not relaxed at all. Right. And that was one of the last examples that we saw before he parted ways with us about about like a kind of conflict of interest between the message from the boardroom and what he was saying. She apparently is the woman now who is vetoing Pochettino's re-emergence at Tottenham. Daniel Levy is not usually the guy that says, like, he's more than capable of making up his own mind. But apparently, as far as we're aware from a lot of insiders and journalists, Daniel Levy is okay with Pochettino coming back, but Donna Cullen isn't. And what's really fascinating, the last part of the story is the day of, or the night before we find out that Scott Munn's coming in. That's not a conversation that's just started. That's a conversation that's been happening. He gets announced. And then the very next day, you see Jesus Perez, the assistant of Pochettino, puts a tweet out where he's showing on his some sports data science thing. And then people zoom in and find those tabs, right? One of them is a tab about the Daily Mail article of why would you work with Daniel Levy? The other one's about Greta Steinson. It's an amazing story. Maybe, just maybe, this guy that has apparently been given the rights to take over all of the Tottenham footballing on-field activities, maybe, just maybe, his first effort is to come in and say, Pochettino is the guy, and Donna Maria Cullen needs to shut up because I'm in charge of that decision. So... And that's the reason why Jesus Perez was looking at who they'd be working with under the new vision at Tottenham Hotspur and having those tabs open. I might be putting 2 and 2 and getting 55 here, but to me, I think when it comes to Scott Munn, I think it's an interesting appointment. Time will tell whether or not he really does have the authority and the autonomy that Daniel Levy says he will. But ultimately, for me, I think he's flawless in what he's done in the past, and it'll be awesome if he could come over and do what he's done there at the next level up. And that, for me, is something we'll have to wait and see on.
So let's assume that Paratici is still here. And if Paratici comes back into the role he was originally in, what does that mean for Paratici? Because I don't see that working. Paratici having to answer to this guy. And if he does get rid of Paratici,
good question.
Is this guy then over recruitment? Because he doesn't have his track record isn't in recruitment, if you get what I mean. Player recruitment.
Well, no, I don't think he would be the replacement for Paratici. I think he would be in charge then of finding somebody else, because I think his history is not necessarily it's on the field activities, but it's more around the structures around it, right? Okay. So he'll find the people to do the work that are specific. So he knows how to. One of the things I saw about him was a lot of the plaudits were around his delegation, right? So he doesn't want to he knows the things he's good at and he knows the things that he's not, right, and that he wants to. So he'll find the people and put the people in place to take over. For me, it just seems like it's a layer in between Paratici and Daniel Levy. And look, whether or not it's a really good PR stunt to make everyone that's a Levy out be a little bit more sympathetic, and people that are not Levy out to say things are changing at Tottenham, we'll have to wait and see, right? Time will tell. But for me, it's at least a sign that there hopefully will be some move in the right direction between a layer where there's a boardroom representative now that is solely in charge of the footballing stuff, and that Daniel Levy obviously is still that guy's boss, but one where he doesn't have as much of a say in what's going on. So for me, I'm all for it. The more distance between Daniel Levy and Paratici, or Daniel Levy and the footballing side, I think it should be something that should be at least cautiously celebrated at the moment. Not saying it's all like it's going to be great, but let's at least wait and see But for me, I think it's something it's looking better than it was 24 hours ago. What are your thoughts?
Look, that was a real insight on Scott Munn there. So hopefully everybody at home actually enjoyed that, because maybe it sort of clears things up for me a little bit, because I wasn't sure how it was going to work if Paratici did get cleared and come back. But it does look like that regardless, we are going to have a director of football who will sort of be in charge of the recruitment. And this guy's in charge of putting all the pieces that Paratici was trying to put in place, like scouting departments, adverts for scouts, etc., in place. This guy should be over it. So really, really interesting conversation there. But look, I think that's bringing us towards the end of the show. So, Shawnee, what's your score prediction and what's coming up on your channel this week?
On my channel, just more the same. I try and get into the interesting topics around whatever's going on in football, finance, football, corporate structure, and obviously Tottenham as well. So keep a lookout. I'm sure there'll be more coming out on that. And my score prediction, mate, is going to be. I can't bet for Tottenham to lose, but I don't think we're going to win. I'm going to say 2-2. What about you, mate?
2-2.
What's happening on your channel, and what's your score prediction?
Oh, lad. Do you know what, Sean? I've gone into this game. Usually I go into the game expecting the best and getting angry because I get the worst. But I've gone into this game expecting nothing. So I've everything to gain this weekend. So it's sort of like a change of overview. So that if we do win, I can be happy about it. So look, let's wait and see. But look, my score prediction is, and guys, Sean's channel, if you want to have a look, listen to what he had to say on Donald Cullen and also on Scott Munn, get over there, check out that video that Sean is talking about. He dropped it earlier on today. Look, my score prediction, look, I'll be honest, I think it's going to be an extremely tough game for us today. I don't hold out any hope that we're all of a sudden going to come out, start playing as a team, this, that, and the other. I do fear the worst today, but no matter what, you will never, ever, ever get me to predict Tottenham to lose. Even if I think it's not in me. Call me deluded, happy clapper, whatever you want. Don't care. I'll take it on board when it comes to that. So I'm going to say Tottenham 1-0 win, even though I don't believe it, but it's what I want. So but I can't. You're never going to get out of me, Shawnee. Never.
No, it's fair enough, mate. It's fair enough. I get it. I get it as well. I'd love to see us win. But yeah, and listen, we're gonna be over on your channel in a minute, and usually there'll be the same screaming and shouting and banging of tables and things. So let's look forward to that.
You know what, lad? Someone just said to me there, it's because I'm becoming a seasoned Spurs fan. I think so, my man. I think so. Do you know what, Sean? Honestly, I'd be like you. I want to smash things, or I want to punch things and stuff, right? But I know the minute I do, because my computer desk is cheap, it all falls down on top of me in the middle, and then also my missus will start going mad at me. I'd to stop. Otherwise, this whole area would be absolute chaos. This would be down, ripped off the wall. There'd be holes in it. So look, hopefully Tottenham don't do that to us today. Hopefully we can sit there and actually enjoy the game for once. That's it for me and Shawnee. Hopefully you've enjoyed this discussion leading up to the game. We're going to leave now, hand you over to the watch along, but get over and check out Sean's channel, Spurs Talk Show. If you like what I have to say, get over and check out my channel as well, at the Irish Hotspur. Stay tuned here for the watch along. We'll see you all here next week for the game, because of course we're not in midweek anymore, which is sad. So guys, regardless of the situation, come on you Spurs, and in the fans we trust.
Yes, there you go.
Fresh air. Good saying, fresh air we trust. Keeps me alive.
Fresh air we trust. Yeah. Nice.